Good evening, everyone. Hello, can everybody hear me? I'm Wendy DeMonte with Renown Health. Thank you so very much for being here this evening for this very important conversation, a town hall on housing, on getting homeless into housing, on getting more affordable housing into this community. How many times have we all had those exact conversations in our own little silos, our own little rooms and boardrooms and conference rooms? And now finally we are all here together thanks to Reno Mayor Hillary Schieve, who promised this in her State of the City, that she would bring together the community to discuss housing, try to look for solutions, and come away with some tangibles. We certainly hope that is going to happen this evening. I'm looking around the room. I see people who are already so deeply involved in this issue, and so we really appreciate your time and energy and efforts with this and making this national, probably global, if I had to give a guess, conversation happen right here in the heart of Reno. So with that, I want to introduce, are you ready? Mayor Hillary Schieve. You don't have a choice, my friend.
Hey, I figured it out. Okay, I got it.
I think I hear you.
Now.
You guys hear? Yeah. Okay, very good. Come on
All
up.
right, thanks so much. Thank you. Well, we're in good hands because I told Wendy at least we're starting off professionally and hopefully we'll end professionally. Give it up for Wendy DeMonte. She's gonna, anyone that knows me, they know I'm like a very, very candid person, but Wendy and I go way back. We used to party in high school together, so I got stories if you guys want them later. All right then. So I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here this evening. I'm really excited to have this conversation with everyone. So welcome. I've got to follow a few notes because I want to make sure that we're following housekeeping and some things that are happening. Very cool. Nice to see you. I haven't seen you guys in forever, so thank you. This means a lot to me that you came out. It really does. I feel like I'm in a room with all my best friends. But some of you know different stories about me than others. Anyway, so before we get started, we have some special guests in the house. I think, Councilwoman Bonnie Weber, where are you? I want to oh, right in front of me. Okay, so I am gonna share something with you. I'm gonna admit it. I have the wrong magnifiers on tonight, so if I if I don't see so well. Well, welcome. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Weber. We also have Reno City Manager Sabra Newby. Should I be using this? Should I use this or is it, you can hear me? Okay, fine, perfect. Assistant City Manager Bill Thomas, where are you? Oh, he's right there, he's right there. I also want to say thank you so much to Renown. If you're as old as I am, you want to call it Washoe Medical Center. So thank you for Renown for wanting to host us tonight, and Tony Slonim and the wonderful Wendy DeMonte. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Gotta get rid of that. Okay, I also have some other special guests, I believe. Thank you so much. Senator Julia Ratty, are you here? Right in front. See, this is why I can't see you. Now I can see you. Okay, I got it. We also have former council member Sharon Zadra. Where are you? There she is. I was lucky enough to serve with Sharon for a few years. Thank you for coming. And she's doing a lot of great work with Enterprise Housing. And hopefully some of you can talk to Sharon afterwards and find out all about that. And I know Ken Crater for sure will mention it tonight, so don't worry, you're in good hands. Also, we have representatives from Senator Cortez Masto's office. Where are you? There you are, Carrie. Thank you so much. That's awesome. And I really appreciate that because it's so nice to have our friends at the state and at the federal level to understand, what a massive issue this is in our community. So thank you so much. We also have Zach Conini. Where are you? It's actually Zach Conine, but we're good enough friends to where I can call him his nickname, right? Am I embarrassing you, Zach?
No, not even a little.
All right, just a little bit. Also, who else do we have from I think we have one more federal delegation member. If I haven't called on you, any other, stand up.
Senator Rosenthal.
Oh, nice, thank you. Thank you, see? All right, well, like I said, we're in good hands. The other thing I want to say thank you so much to the media who's here. We often forget to say thank you to you guys, but honestly, you're a big part of what we do and how we message in our community, whether it's good or bad, and I like what you say about me or not. Thank you so much. No, you guys are great, honestly. You usually say very nice things. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. Also, some of the organizations that showed up tonight with some of your information that you brought to the community, will you please stand up so we can give you a big round of applause who brought information to share with us tonight, our community partners, right? They're all, there you are. All right, I also, a couple of notes that I'm supposed to remind everyone is that we are going to be recording tonight's event, because I know there were several people that said, hey, Mayor, I can't be here tonight. So we are going to be recording that, and it will be available later on the City of Reno's YouTube page. So I just want to make sure that everyone gets the opportunity, if they weren't able to attend tonight, to have this discussion with us later. So I'm supposed to remind you of that. The other thing is, the reason obviously why we're here is, how many of you came to my State of the City? Nice, wow, I'm impressed. But the sad part is you're all my relatives, so we won't tell anyone. We're all related, so you had to come. But anyway, during my State of the City, I had promised a housing town hall, and obviously it is such an important topic. It's a critical topic, now more than ever. And I've talked about this a lot if you've heard me speak, that we have experienced some incredible success in our region. It has been absolutely phenomenal. Anywhere I go, people are talking about Reno. Reno is this buzz. People keep saying, wow, Mayor Schieve, when I'm on a plane in New York City and people are saying, oh my God, I just read about you guys in the Wall Street Journal, and I just read about you guys in the New York Times, and you guys have really changed from this, Reno 911 rhetoric to like this, don't laugh. You're never supposed to say that word again. And from that to, wow, you guys are like this up and coming cool city with arts and culture and food and beautiful landscape. We have one of the best outdoor recreational areas in the world. Would you not agree? Yeah, it's amazing. And something else I'm working on, and anyone that knows me, sometimes I get so excited, but there is something else I'm working on, and I'll just share just a teeny bit of that when I talk about recreation. One of the things that we have to preserve more than anything, and I have a big initiative coming out, and that is to clean up our river. It is so beautiful. We need to take care of it. And so anyway, with all this success comes challenges. And let me just tell you, every mayor in the country is experiencing housing challenges and affordability. And obviously, when we bring jobs here, again, I can't say it enough, with success comes challenges, and housing is certainly one of them. I hear all the time, Mayor Schieve, what are we doing about housing? And I wanted to bring everyone in this room so you could hear about what we are doing about housing. I think it's absolutely critical because there's a lot that's actually happening, but I don't know if we've done the best job that we can do to let our community know what's out there, what's happening, where we're going, and sometimes why it is challenging. And I want to be very candid about why it is. And let me tell you, one of the challenges that I hear a lot, and it's really, really hard, and I want you to put yourself in my shoes or a council member's shoes, and people say to me, Mayor Schieve, we want affordable housing in our community. We want affordable housing, but just not here. So I want you to ask yourself, when someone says that to you, and you're the mayor, future mayor right here, I want you to think, what would you say? It is a really difficult job on the city council, because a lot of times you can see both sides. I can see why someone might not want a project next to them, but you also have to see too that there are people that when they buy something, you own that. Now you own that. I don't have the right, or it's not even legal for me to tell you, you don't own that. So it becomes very, very difficult. And sometimes it's really challenging when you see, projects and oh my goodness, with this, we can house, 500 people and we can make a difference. And, that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight too is infill, right? And then doing projects, in the core, which are really, really critical too. And a lot of those make sense as well. But supply and demand comes into a big part of the factor, and it's all types of housing. If we don't build this housing, do you think it will stabilize rents? Show me hands. So, and at the same time, I was born and raised here. Who remembers Hash Lane? Okay, so you're really old. No, just kidding. But anyway, what I'm saying is I was born and raised here, and I love this city, more than anything. And of course, some of these changes are hard on us when we see these things. But I also want to share this community with other people. And, it does hurt my heart. And I will say tonight, we are going to start this off with a tone of community, compassion, and grace for one another. We have enough divide in politics. We just do. And as a community, I got to tell you, I can't build housing without private and public partnerships and people that say, oh my gosh, that terrible developer over there, he's so greedy, he's terrible. Well, guess what? As a mayor, I'm not going to have housing in this community if I don't partner with the developer to get it here. Maybe it's a piece of land that the city has, and then we say, hey, you build it. And there's a lot of rhetoric out there. I got off Facebook a long time ago, and it saved about 2 hours of my life every night, and I've de-stressed, and I promise you, and I tell my friends, I never knew how fat, ugly, and stupid I was till I got on Facebook, right? But honestly, there's stuff sometimes I was reading was so way off base, and so who this council is, and so who, these greedy politicians are. I work with some amazing people, not just on my city council, but in this community, and if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be able to move mountains and do what we're doing. People would not want to live here or have the great quality of life that we all have. And I'm sorry that I want to share that with other people. I think it's pretty incredible, the quality of life that we can have here. But we all have to kind of do it together. So, and it's not easy. I will tell you, nights before council meetings, I lay awake at night, knowing we have tough decisions to make. But I also am of the mindset, just because you can doesn't always mean you should too. So I think there's also a balance. But again, I brought you here tonight to talk about really the solutions, what's happening. There's a lot of questions that I get that sometimes I can't answer, but the developer on the panel will be able to do that. So I'm excited about that. I also want to just share with you a couple of things, because I don't think that, again, I wanted to tell a little bit about what the council has done. I think that has been sort of overshadowed by a lot of negativity, and that's just wrong when we talk about the city council. They're very accessible, and they really do care. And now more than ever, it's not just housing, it's also homelessness, and it's addiction and mental health. I just started my own mental health board. Thank you to Brandon, my officer. He's our internal contact now with the city, the first one ever for mental health challenges inside the police department, so they have a place to go and talk about mental health, because you want to make sure that all your officers on the street have great mental health, right? And so I want to say thank you. So we just started a mental health board, because I think that's essential. We have to have that at the ground level. We can't have it at the state anymore. It's got to be right here at home where it affects us the most. And we have some incredible providers that are coming in, like Steve Shell from Nevada Behavioral Health Hospital. We are so lucky and fortunate, by the grace of God, to have that facility here. I'm a huge advocate for mental health. How many of you have family that suffer from mental health issues? Don't be afraid. I've got 2, so I should be really happy. Right? And then I'll come home tonight, my sister will be like, what? What? What did you just say? Amanda, it's not you. I wasn't talking about you. Anyway, okay, so moving on, because we want to get the conversation started, so I apologize. Okay, we have a great new website. This is something that I talked about, and I said I want the public to be able to see what it is that the city of Reno is doing. And so I want to thank my comms team. You're amazing. Rebecca and Matt. Where are you? They're over here. Oh, yeah, the website went live today at reno.gov/housing. This will be a place where you can always see what the council is doing on housing. So when you're out there and you're talking about it and you want to see where we're at, and Brad's over there, wave your hand. Brad, thank you. He made my talking points really big tonight. Thank you. So this is a great resource, and so I'm really grateful that this is now up and live. So this is where you can find a lot of that information. I want to give you a couple of stats. So when we look back over the last 2.5 years, we've had some pretty big wins, and let me talk about some of them. We've produced 6,954 units of housing since 2017. Okay? Yeah, someone was going to clap. I heard you. I'll take it. Thank you. And out of those 2,531 units of those are affordable, and that means 36% of all approved units are affordable. That's pretty big. There's not a lot of cities that can say that. So honestly, I want to say thank you to everyone in our building department. Are any City of Reno staff? They have a really, really tough job. So give them a huge round of applause. Those numbers are important. Let's see. The other thing I wanted to tell you, the council also, a lot of people don't know this. This is important. The council also works to donate funds or provide grants and bonds for projects as well. That total since 2017 is more than $5.7 million that the council has allocated. That's a lot of money. It really is a lot of money. So we're very proud of that. And that's just in the last 2.5 years. So the other big one, how many of you have visited the Sage Street Village? Have you guys? This is our newest project. You have, thank you so much. We appreciate that. But it's very innovative. It's something that we partnered. We donated a piece of land with the Community Foundation, the village on Sage Street. How many again have you guys been there? Have you guys seen it? Good. Thank you. Thank you. And I think that that's really important to know because it was really a lot of community members coming together with an idea. So if you guys ever have any great ideas and you think, yes, I have the magic answer to affordable housing or housing in general, come to a city council meeting. We want to hear from you. We want to hear that public comment because this project started out of that. So if that doesn't tell you that we don't listen to our citizens, I don't know what does. And we came to the table with land. So that's very, very cool. And then lots of foundations went out there and raised the funding for this. So anyway, I want to get moving on with our great panel. I invited some people who I absolutely admire and respect and are what I call, a lot of them are housing heroes. I'm going to call them up one by one. They're so sweet. Some of them did not want to do this. They came here kicking and screaming because they don't like to public speak. I know I've already called it out. They're like, great, Hillary. You're already told on me. But I said, I really, really want you at the table because these are some of the most caring people in our community when it comes to building housing. And so first up, I'm gonna call you up one by one, but I wish I had like a cool like NBA kind of background, music, something. So when you come up, can you kind of act like you're excited? So first up, number 54, Bruce Breslow. I don't know what they say, but playing for the All-Star team, Bruce Breslow. Now I'm going to tell you how old I am. If you remember Bruce Breslow, he was my favorite sportscaster at News Channel 8. Who remembers? Yeah, see, we remember. And now look we've circled back around.
You were skating.
Yeah, he knew me in my last life when I was a figure skater. So thank you, Bruce. We appreciate it. He's also the founder and CEO of Nevada Strategies and was instrumental at the state when it came to bringing housing and funding housing. So he is a massive expert in the field, and we're lucky to have you. Thank you so much, Bruce. Next up, one of my other favorite people, who's done tremendous job, and all he does is affordable housing, and it's absolutely beautiful, and he's very humble. He's just an all-around great person, and anytime I've ever said, I need something in the community, it doesn't matter whether it's from Little League to, just providing little pins for, certain events, is a co-founder of Green Street Properties. Dayton Hilliard, please come on up. How many of you know Dean personally in the audience? I'm just curious. Okay. All right. Just checking. All right. And then next is our executive director of the Reno Housing Authority, and that's the one and only Amy Jones. And Amy's got to be one of the nicest people I've ever met in the community. She is wonderful. I mean, this girl wears a halo. She's unbelievable. I absolutely love and adore you, Amy. She's from the Reno Housing Authority, and if anyone knows, that entity, they do some amazing work. And I felt like, that part of your story should be told tonight, because what you do, a lot of the community has no idea. And you really are a big piece of the glue, so thank you so much. Next up, we have president of Crater Consulting, and he was also instrumental in forming my operation downtown, and that's Ken Crater. Please welcome Ken Crater. How many of you attended Operation Downtown? No, that's impressive. Very cool. Again, all my relatives, so they had to come. Oh, they're Ken's. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Also, one of the nicest guys, and if you know this guy, this is I'm not just saying this. He is wonderful, wonderful. And how I met him is that he reads to children in schools and dedicates time at Hopes and Nevada Youth Empowerment Project. I mean, there has never been a better and more wonderful community partner, so humble. And I think you actually started back in the days with Apple a long time. He'll never tell you that because he is that humble. But he is wonderful. We are wonderful. We are so blessed to have you in our community. And that is the one and only, the founder of Lifestyle Homes, Bob Listner. All right, and then next up, someone many of you work with, and I got to tell you, I have never met anyone more knowledgeable when it comes to understanding building. And I didn't know this, but you're the CEO. The CEO, I did not know that you've moved up over there. Okay, so he is the CEO of the Builders Association of Northern Nevada, my good friend Don Tatro. All right. Last but not least, we have one more person who's going to be coming up here, and I'm so blessed to work with him. I got to tell you, that is the one thing from whenever I was elected, what I've learned so much at the city is how wonderful the people are that work there. We get to work with some pretty phenomenal people that work from sun up to sundown, that don't stop. And I just want everyone to know you have a really, really impressive group of people running this city. And I could not do what I do every single day if it wasn't for this man who has massive vision, but he's also incredibly innovative. And he brings ideas and things to me and things to the city that are really impressive, but they're into the future. And that's really what, in a lot of ways, has kept the city of Reno sort of very cutting edge. And if you don't know him, that's the honest to God truth. And so I'm lucky to work with him, and that's our assistant city manager, Bill Thomas. So please come on up. All right, so we're going to get the show on the road. This is going to be just, sort of casual, and if you go on and on, or if I go on and on, just cut me off. Okay, so that's how we're going to work that. Hold on, let me grab this. So the first question, okay. All right, are you nervous?
Yes.
Can you give me a gotcha? Has anyone got some gotchas? No? Okay. Okay, so the first thing, for starters, I have an important question to ask all of you. From your perspective, what is the biggest challenge facing Reno when it comes to housing? I'm going to start with you, Mr. Breslow.
Is this working?
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
Lack of single-family housing. And to me, that is your missing middle. We have not recovered. So from 1995 to 2007, we were building between 4,000 and 5,000 units a year. And now we're close to 3, and we're in the sixth year of this big boom. And so the single-family developers, the local ones, the regional ones, they all lost their businesses. They were very slow to react. The publicly traded companies haven't come back to the market. But I'm going to do it with some statistics. Sales from last year till today, sales of single-family homes are down 8.6% from a year ago. Considering that jobs are coming, more people are moving here, prices are going up, and yet we're still down 8.6% from last year, and we're off the mark by about 2,000 single family. And hats off to all of these folks here that are doing amazing affordable housing projects. But we have about 11,000 multifamily units being constructed now in various stages of the process. There's 23,400 total in the community and 11,000 under construction. So you're going to see some relief, hopefully, on the rental side. But the rental rates just went up again to $1,316, up $24 from last quarter. So the challenges to me come into you need basic single-family housing, and you need it everywhere, not just in Reno, not just in Sparks. You need it in Dayton, Fernley, Fallon, Silver Springs, and everywhere that somebody can build it, because a developer's not going to build it unless it's a business. They've got to be able to buy the land, afford it, afford the hookup fees, afford the water rights, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's going to be a regional solution, not necessarily just a Reno one. So you have some help with all the other communities.
So I do hear developers tell me, you know, Hillary, I'm actually priced out of the market with the land going up. Is that, are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, I was going to say our biggest problem is the costs, the cost of land, the cost of construction, the fees, and the shortage of labor. So labor has gone up dramatically. A lot of the subcontractors went out of business back in the crash. I think maybe 2/3 did. So we have a very small, limited labor pool, and a lot of them are being pulled out to trick to build Google and all those things out there. So labor's a shortage. The cost of land, we're paying about 4 times right now for apartment land than we paid pre-crash. So it's gone up 4 times. So now good apartment land is in the $25,000 a door range. Before the crash, we were buying it for $7,000 a door. Cost of construction is up pre-crash probably close to 50%. So that's our biggest constraint, is the costs. And obviously land is more limited. I must say the city has been very good to work with, and you guys are not a hurdle to us. You facilitate affordable housing. We do affordable housing.
That's not what Facebook says.
Yeah, I'm not on Facebook either.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But, okay, so to your point, what I'm hearing too is that it's not just any one thing. I'm hearing that it's land. I'm hearing that it's labor, it's cost of goods. I mean, is
All those things.
all those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Is there anyone else that wants to weigh in?
From the housing authority's perspective, you know, we see the lack of affordable housing, and we're seeing the families that can't afford the units here. They're experiencing unreasonable rent increases from owners. And, you know, we were used to seeing the low-income families and the extremely low-income families having a hard time, but we're hearing more and more from those working families that just can't afford their rent. And due to that, we created our homeless prevention program through our subsidiary, Washoe Affordable Housing. And that helped those individuals due to unforeseen circumstances. We would be able to help them with that rent, because the last thing we wanted is to have those families lose their housing because it takes so much longer to get back on their feet or to find another unit. So, that's is something we did. We're responding to that need in the community, but we're just still, those families that are working are really having a hard time finding units.
Yeah, because I hear that a lot. How many do you hear? I get it a lot where, Mayor Schieve, my rent went up by $400 a month. I mean, I do. I hear that quite a bit. And I know, and a lot of people don't realize this, but there's a lot of people that are one paycheck away from being homeless. Absolutely. Did you know that? Yeah. Yes. But a lot of people don't know that. And that is really important. Well, that's why it's important to have these conversations so people understand, that is exactly what we're facing and the crisis that we're facing, right? Because it doesn't make sense for us to have people on the streets. That only costs us more money. We know from Reno Housing Authority and homeless prevention programs like Amy's that, one thing could happen. You could get sick. I mean, I met a man, his cat got sick and had massive veterinary bills. And so the money that he was going to use for rent went to his cat. And that doesn't help us if we have people on the streets. Does that make sense? It doesn't. So Amy's come in from the Reno Housing Authority and brought in emergency assistance for things like that. And I think those things are very, very critical. I will say, I want to also be very clear, not everyone is a bad actor. I've met some wonderful, wonderful landlords that are not raising rents and that kind of understand the dynamic and want to keep good renters. And then there are also people that I meet that don't have good credit, that had previous evictions, and things of that nature, and make it really difficult for them to get into housing. But just because of that does not mean that those people should be taken advantage of, because they have been put in some very difficult positions with horrible, horrific conditions, which we won't tolerate. If we find out about it, we will not tolerate that. And we have made that very, very clear. So that's really important. But I want to say, Amy, maybe also kind of give an overview. Does everyone know that the Reno Housing Authority does? Maybe you can tell them what you do. But also, they're taking on this much bigger role now because of the housing crisis, like emergency services. We're seeing a lot of seniors be affected, lots of seniors. And that's a big problem. And so thank goodness for Amy has stepped up and done a lot of that emergency assistance so that we can keep them in their homes. That's really critical.
The traditional role of the traditional role of a housing authority, the Reno Housing Authority, is to provide oversight of HUD programs, so the Housing Choice Voucher Program or Section 8 that many of you are probably aware of, which provides assistance to private landlords throughout the community, as well as the Public Housing Program. We own and operate 751 public housing units. But as we continue to see this community grow and change, our role as a housing authority is changing, and we want to do more to support the community. And that's where this homeless prevention program comes in. We're looking at playing a larger role in developing more properties, affordable units, using funding resources, low-income housing tax credits. So while we do administer those programs, we want to do more and we want to help more. We've been working with the enterprise community partners on how we can play a bigger role to drive forward a regional strategy. And that's because we care about this community. We want to help this community and do more as we grow as a region.
And not a lot of housing authorities do this around the country. Whenever I convene with other mayors, I kind of say, what's the role of your housing authority? And that's what I really love about Amy and our housing authority. They are right at the forefront and saying, hey, how can we help? And they figured out a way to leverage their existing inventory to be able to do that, to help build more housing and more private and public partnerships. A lot of housing authorities don't do that. And Amy, because, you know, she's a little whippersnapper. You have all this energy. She literally comes to me and gets it done. And so those are really, really important programs. So I really appreciate it. The other thing I want to ask our panelists, because I think this is also, I think it's defined very differently for different people. And, you know, how do you define what affordable housing is in Reno? Raise your hand. Ken Crater, go ahead.
So I've thought about this for a long time now as we went through the boom years and into the Great Recession and now. But if you look at affordable housing, I mean, typically you want to say that you shouldn't be spending more than 30% of your gross income on your housing costs, because if you're spending more than that, then you become challenged to meet all your other spending requirements for medical cost and transportation cost, education for your kids, right? But I look back at my parents and their first house in Sparks. They had a 900 square foot, 1 bedroom, 1 bath house. And they were happy as can be because they had their own house and they were living the American dream, and they could afford to send their kids to, you know, school and pay for medical insurance. But now I almost think we need a paradigm shift in this country, because now I think the expectation of first-time home buyers is I need a 3 bedroom, 3.5 bath house with a great room, and I need a big yard. Well, maybe you can't afford that, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with advertising and social media. But I think we need to take a long, hard look at this community in this country. What do we really need in terms of housing? And that echoes Bruce's comment on the missing middle housing. And we learned this from Enterprise Community Partners when they came to town over the last couple of years, is that missing middle housing, those smaller single-family detached units, the townhomes, the condominiums, right? Those 800, 900, 1,200 square foot homes that are affordable to most of the people. And that's what we like to say, housing that's not affordable, right? Not affordable housing, because there's a bad connotation. But fact of the matter is a lot of the affordable housing units are way better managed than your market rate units. And frankly, if you knew some of the people like Matthew Fleming that manage these 30% area median income housing, you'd much rather live next to his unit than an apartment that has bad management.
Yeah, yeah. Is Matthew here? Is Matthew here anywhere? Anyway, if you don't know Matthew, he's wonderful, and the product he builds is absolutely wonderful. I don't know where is he hiding somewhere? No, anyway, just a huge shout out to Matthew. He's a wonderful housing hero.
And Mayor, can I dive in?
Yes,
Sorry.
please do.
So I like to look at the term attainable housing. Affordable housing has a kind of a connotation to it, and there's different mechanisms through HUD refunds and everything. But attainable housing, just to give you an example right now, I read a report this morning that our median home price was $400,000 for new and existing homes. That takes $88,000 to qualify for.
Outrageous.
Yeah, last year though, the good news is it was $89,000. But so it's come down $1,000. But when we look at the different prices and the myriad of things, when we talk about the cost of construction and everything, I think there's a lack of understanding and what goes into the cost. And those are, you know, of course you have your land, your labor, but the tariffs are hitting, and so the price of those goods are going up. We have codes are increasing. We have a myriad of different things that are driving the increase of these costs. And the builder or developer goes in and they put all the infrastructure in. They put in a street, they put in the utilities, and then they build
So
a house.
they pay for that.
They pay for that and then give it back to the city. So that's all included in your home price. And then you look at the things, what can we control? We can control time and we can control the regulations, right? That's about it. And the time factor is what's slowed us a lot. We didn't have anything in the pipeline in the recession. We had a law in place that said there was a 120% chance you were going to get sued if you built an attached product. So a condo, a townhome, you were going to get sued. Who wants to build that? 120% chance. Not going to do it. So then if we can reduce the time, which
So are you
thankful
saying
for,
just in Nevada?
Yeah, just in Nevada.
Okay.
And if you look at Reno right now, the things they're doing, we have a meeting coming up with the region to talk about bringing everything electronically from plan review. We're still submitting plans the same way Mark Twain did in the Comstock era, you know? We're getting
That's true.
things
I know we
notarized.
laugh, but that's true.
And it's driven by NRS. If we can reduce the time, you reduce the costs. A mortgage, you know, we all kind of have an idea of what that costs, but now multiply it by $100 million of infrastructure and loans on the land. Now you got a big number, and if you're delayed a month, 3 weeks, any of that, that is significant, and that goes to the bottom line of the house. It has to be spread across. So the other thing
You're
I want to
talking
just,
about time.
yeah, that's just time.
Product to market, because let me also tell you the other challenge that we have as council and the whole process. That's the other really challenging thing, is that housing doesn't just pop up overnight. It takes planning, it takes a lot of money, it takes labor, it's intense. So if I could wave that magic wand that someone tells me that I have somewhere that I can't find, I would pull it out right now and pull out housing. Because again, remember, more product. So think about this, more product, am I right?
Yeah, builders don't
Equals
create demand
Stabilizing, am I right?
to it, yeah,
So this is how you would stabilize rents?
absolutely.
Am I
Supply
right?
is what's going to
But
do
how
it.
do you do that when someone says, hey, Mayor, I want that, but just not here?
If I can make an advocate out of anyone in the room, it would be to go to support projects when they come before council, because you hear from the small minority of people who just don't want someone next door. And I always ask, when was the appropriate time to close the door? I love hearing people go to council and they say, I moved here 3 years ago and I don't want those people. I'm like, I was born here in '82, get out, you know? So when is the appropriate time to close the door? And we only hear from the people who are angry because, yeah, they don't want a neighbor or whatever. So, no, you know, we need to encourage these things. We need to hear from folks that, hey, we want housing here and we want it now. Sorry, that's my soapbox, but.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is really important, but again, affordable housing, even if you want to call it affordable housing. So I go back to Matthew Fleming, and he bought a piece of land from me, and I worked with him for 2 years to develop a 45-unit affordable housing project right by Virginia Lake, right by a long-established residential neighborhood. It was 30% area median incoming housing. So some of the most affordable housing for some of the lowest income individuals. We had a very contentious meeting the first time with the neighborhood. My little conference room was packed. It got a little bit ugly, but we kept working and we kept explaining and showing them what we're going to do and how we had a 50-year management contract. When we went to the Planning Commission, we had a whole bunch of neighbors in support, and neighbors in support at the Reno City Council and neighbors at the groundbreaking. And now if you go out there, they're going, wow, this is one of the best projects we could have ever had in our neighborhood. So do not think for a minute that because it's affordable, it has to be a bad project.
Yeah, you know, that's interesting, because I do see that a lot. What, you know, I've seen, okay, you know, some people were very worried about the eddy that came downtown, you know. And later on, they said, oh, my goodness, Mayor, that's such a cool, you know, space. And, you know, they've done a really good job there. And, I mean, I got a lot of, you know, opposition. And so it was really interesting to see. And also, I think, too, a lot of times after we build something or put a project in, people are like, wow, that wasn't that bad. But you can get a ton of opposition, which makes it really, really challenging, you know, as well. Sometimes I say it's like medicine. At first it tastes terrible, and later you feel so much better. I don't know, you know, it's kind of that whole, you know, scenario. But and I also want to say, be very cautious about, you know, we'll put stuff on the agenda. Just because it ends up on the agenda, we're having it on the agenda for a discussion, doesn't mean that's the view of the council or that's the way it's going to go. I mean, a lot of people, you know, tend to kind of, you know, fly off the handle, and it's just, you know what, that means we're talking about it, come down and talk about it with us, you know, so, and we want you to be at the table for these projects. But again, remember, we want to stabilize these rents, we want to build more product, but when you tell us just not here, then what? So, you know, I want to stress that. One of the things, so I want to ask you this. So I'd like to focus on suburban versus infill projects. Okay, because I think those are really important, because you hear people saying, oh my gosh, sprawl. And we know infill obviously makes a lot of sense, right? And it's much easier. I love Bob. He's already like, I got this one. And so I want to know for our developers, and I'm going to call on you, Bob, first. What's more expensive and why when it comes to infill developments and suburban projects? And then what do renters and buyers actually want? And then can we lower the impact of long commutes and the downsides of sprawl? And I'm going to give that to Mr. Listener. Do you still want to answer it? Your hand was up, so I was giving you a chance to back out now. All right, go ahead, Mr. Listener.
Works. Okay. Well, we are some of the people are talked about when they're talking about sprawl. We're looking at a project right now that we would like to include in our town center in Cold Springs, and it would look a lot like Brighton Manor. I know some of you know that at the corner of Moana and Plumas. And I'm guessing those go for $500,000 or $600,000 each, because the land, the problem with infill is the land is terribly expensive, anything within the McCarran Ring. So I've heard more than once, you drive till you qualify. And
I had not heard
that's
that.
pretty much the truth. So,
Wow.
so we can build those same units and for about $325,000 in Cold Springs. And again, the difference is the cost in land. It's not different regulation or anything else. It's just the cost of land. Also, for infill, it's very hard to get a piece of land that is big enough to do anything where you can get some economies of scale. So that's a problem. I think I'll leave it there. I'm not going to try and answer what buyers want. Maybe somebody else.
But I think that's interesting because people are always like, oh, just build it right there. Well, it's super, super expensive. Obviously, you guys are all living in a very desirable city right now. And there's a lot of people jumping on it. So you make some very interesting points that you can build it more affordable and offer a more affordable product, correct? Yes. Okay. Yes.
So to add to the mix, Bob does build a great product and obviously has no lack of buyers. So I would say that people like what he's bringing to the market, but probably part of that is because it's housing that people can afford, right? But the other way to look at infill versus suburban is there's more infrastructure required for suburban development than infill development. And so that speaks to having a jobs housing balance. Because if we really want to do good planning and reduce, for example, the traffic impacts to our community, reduce the need for expensive freeway lanes and interchanges, right? We need jobs and housing and retail and schools all in the same neighborhood. And the North Valleys is the perfect example right now. There's been a lot of employment developed out there now. And if you look at RTC's latest, they put together a very detailed transportation plan to figure out how much fees to charge developers for traffic improvements. And they've actually seen a decrease in trip length for employment related land uses over the last few years. And I have to believe that's because we're providing that jobs housing balance and people are saying, hey, now that I have a job out in the North Valleys, I'm gonna get an apartment or a house in the North Valley so I can be close to my kids' school and close to my job. And if you do that, it also reduces the cost of infrastructure. So I think either infill or suburban, we need it all, right? But let's just be smart about how we plan it.
Okay. So the other thing I wanted to ask you, because there was those university homes, especially like when there's existing buildings. There were some downtown that we took out. We were trying to preserve them, but we took them out, and then people, kind of really got upset because they said, "Oh my God, you're taking out, this housing." And going in there, and I got to tell you, and I'm not going to apologize for it, looking at some of the conditions that were downtown, and then they called it affordable housing for 150 square feet, and the mold, and there was no running water, and beds had not been changed in 20 years in some of those what they called housing. We could not save those structures, and a lot of those structures were built to only last about 40 years. They were not built for housing. They don't even have kitchenettes in them. That is not housing. And to me, when you are charging someone, there was a lot of them between, I would say 250 and 350 a week. You do the math for 150 square feet. That's not affordable housing. I'm sorry. And that's slumlords taking advantage of people. Okay, so I want people to know that. And because that got very, very contentious. And we went in there originally and looked and said, can we save some of these things? I love to preserve historic buildings and things like that. Can you tell us why we don't see more of that, or why is that so hard? Because I had a hard time. I was really naive. I walked in there and said, hey, we'll just, fix this wall here and do that. Can some of you speak to why it's hard to do that?
I'll go ahead. Ken's probably more qualified to answer this than I am, but one of the things is you're probably going to go in there and you're going to find asbestos. You're going to find things that aren't up to code. I toured the UNR house trying to see if we could help in any way to salvage it, and it had exposed wiring for the electrical system. So if you lean your wrapping paper on it in the closet, you're going to light your house on fire. So to go in, rip all that out, and then reconstruct the shell is more expensive than to start over in a lot of cases to bring it up to the standards we have today. And what you just touched on about what people were living in that they said was housing, it wasn't. It was something that was terrible that we in the city had going on. And as soon as I appreciate the mayor and all the staff who went in and said, this isn't a livable space and it's time to upgrade this. And unfortunately, that displaced a lot of people to no fault of their own, but to the fault of those folks who had been sheltering them at an exorbitant cost in substandard conditions that were just unbelievable. I saw some of them, and when you have kids going to school with rat bites leaving their house, it's just not acceptable. So coming in and fixing that problem now takes time. We can't just snap our fingers overnight and create what was taken down in that many existing bedrooms, but we're trying. And I applaud the city of Reno for a lot of things you're doing, revamping the new codes, making that easier to come in, getting things electronically done. That is huge. That will save time and bring projects to market much quicker and give everyone the supply they need and the flexibility in their payments.
Okay, Amy.
I just wanted to say,
I love it. She didn't want to speak tonight. And then she goes, me. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I know a lot of the community was frustrated for tearing down or bringing down those homes. But it just speaks, the city looked at how can we save these? How can we turn those to housing? The Housing Authority looked at those. We did the same thing. How can we turn this into affordable housing? How can we use it? And we saw the same thing that, the exposed wires, there was just too much that needed to be done. But it really speaks that as a community, we're really looking at every resource out there. And I don't think everyone sees what all of us are doing, and we are looking at all of our options.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Breslow, go ahead.
On those houses, I wanted to point out the tall gentleman there from the housing division from the state. The housing division even offered to pay for the transportation to move every one of those houses, but nobody had any place to put those houses either. But you asked a question about urban infill, and I just want you to take a moment and realize you have the best infill project that we have ever seen here coming, and it's called Park Lane Mall. It has been in the heart of the city, on the road that comes from the airport, and an eyesore for so many years, and you're about to have a vibrant, mixed-use, cutting-edge, high-density, 1,700 units or so, and these are the jobs of these people that are coming to town now, that these younger people who like rooftop gardens and things like that. It is just a fabulous project, and it is going on in Reno, but it's economies of scale. You couldn't do a little bitty one.
Right, and remember, so when you have that housing, then it frees up other housing, right? Because we didn't have that, right? So that's what I want everyone to understand, and I want people to understand because the city kind of took some negative comments when it came to that infrastructure, and that infrastructure was so old, the sewer was so old, that if we didn't, then there would be no project. And what happens if there's no project? What happens? There's no tax increment that comes in.
A lot of pigeons.
right? Do you see what I'm saying? So that vacant land just sits there. It's not doable, to develop on. And so sometimes it makes sense where the city comes in and says, hey, we understand that infrastructure is that old, and once that tax increment comes in, then you can afford to pay it back, right? Or some of those things. Those are what we call private and public partnerships. And a lot of times I see a lot of negative comments about, oh, the city, oh my goodness, they're giving away the farm. Well, guess what? I would imagine, I don't know if you know, Bruce, how much money is that project going to bring in every year?
I can't answer that one.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I heard between 30 million, 70 million, right? 70? Someone's over here. Okay, 70 million a year? Okay. Yeah, with everything, right? So think about that. Now the city is getting money that we never had before, right? So that's important, correct? Okay, I'm just trying to dial it down. Okay, I want to make sure. Okay. No, so hold on, we'll do questions afterwards. We'll make sure that you get yours in, because I want to wrap this up and then we'll move on, because I don't want everyone to be here all night. And let me tell you something, you guys, this is a conversation we can have in 3 days. This isn't just an hour and a half here tonight. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to affordable housing. We haven't even talked about the wages. We haven't even talked about, I recently just did an interview with Sam Shad, and I talked about, the state brought in a lot of incentives to bring a lot of big business here. And meanwhile, the people that it affected the most, suffered and had to find other places to live, right? And not only that, small business is the largest job creators in the country. And, small business, remember, you guys remember in the recession, one of the things that I thought was so crazy is here many of you were making mortgage payments, and meanwhile we bailed out the big banks. It's crazy, right? So all I'm saying is we're not solving the world here tonight, unfortunately. I wish we were. But this is a long conversation with other pieces to it, like I said, minimum wages and things like that. But I think people need to know, why is it difficult to produce housing, in the levels that we talk about? Because we hear Mike Kazmierski out there saying we need, these massive amounts of housing. And then, I'm going to say it because probably a lot of people are not going to say this tonight, but I am going to say this. Let's talk about, there's some talk lately about what this global economy is going to look like. I know, here's our state treasurer going like this. But I don't know about you, but whenever I've been reading and I've been doing a lot of studying, it's scary. What's happening next? So there's a lot of unknowns. All I'm just trying to say in a nutshell is that there's a lot of different moving parts. It's not just one thing. We all have to do it together. There's a lot of different strategies that are out there. What do you say that we could do to promote more housing? I want to hear from all of you. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, all right. We and a couple other property owners have a 7,200 unit approved project in the North Valleys. Why aren't we building it? Well, a problem sooner or later is that what the city of Reno can do is continue to move forward on expanding the sewer plant, because we can't do it without. But the biggest problem right now is the federal government. And the North Valleys are surrounded by federal properties, and they don't move very quickly. They have 250 years of well-meaning legislation written by Congress that they have to deal with. And it's not a problem with the staff, it's a problem of regulations. And I think our mayor is just the person to do a hostile takeover of the federal government.
What? Oh no. I've lost enough hair and gained enough weight. I can't do it.
Reduce the regulations, but we are stopped dead in the water because of a 3-year process with the federal government. The final obstacle is that first house with all the utilities we have to bring to it, as Ken mentioned, is going to cost us about, well, we need to sell it for 75 million to break even. All the rest of the houses will be affordable, probably well under 400,000. It'll be a mix of properties, so there'll be some over, but there's going to be market workforce housing, affordable housing, and we can't even get started.
Okay, who else?
One of the things I think we need is in the area, we need to, infrastructure is key. In the North Valley's expansion of the sewer plant. And one of the pieces of that is every house or unit pays about $50,000 in fees. That's just for your right to use the sewer, your right to use that hookup. And we need to move forward on the bonding capacity and get those expansions going. I think that's one of the biggest things. Giving these builders and developers need runway, so getting the projects approved, whether it be one out in Cold Springs or maybe Daybreak, whatever it is, we need to have the runway. People need to be able to buy the lots so that they have the future, and that will drive the price down to the lot as well. So moving these projects forward is one of the biggest things to get supply out there, and then reducing the everything in a home is regulated right now, from your air changes per hour to where your outlets have to go, how many feet down the wall. All of those things add up and take time. So I think those are kind of the biggest things.
However, unfortunately, we can't build any more houses because we have a labor shortage of construction workers in this community. After the Great Recession, a huge number of contractors, laborers, architects, engineers either went to a different profession or they just up and left the community. And it's taken a long time to try and build that back. And we also have a difficult time in trying to convince high school students all the way down to middle school that there's a great career in the trades, right? You can get a job in the trades and make way more money than probably most of the professions that you could spend $100,000 on a college education to do. So somehow, again, we got to change the mindset in this country that be proud to be in the trades and build something, and every day turn back and say, wow, I helped build that today, right? That's a big problem.
Yeah. I think, see, again, another full topic that I'm glad you brought it up, but we could touch on that because workforce development is really, really critical. I think you make such a great point because I'm a big believer, and I hate to say this is so awful, 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 but everyone that knows me, they know that I always call the elephant out in the room, but I really believe a lot of kids are gonna go to college, get out of college, have a very hard time finding jobs, and be in massive amounts of debt. You're already seeing these kids in this crazy debt from these student loans. It is atrocious. I think that is going to be one of the next biggest falls of America, and it's super, super sad. So if there's anything that you've said tonight, Ken, that is really, really important. The trades are really, really critical. And also I think too, technology and innovation and, some of the most brilliant people I know never went to college, and we constantly are putting people down because they didn't go to college. And there's so much potential out there. So I'm glad that and I'm a big proponent of education. I'm not saying because everyone's going to leave, oh my God, Mayor Schieve said, don't go to college. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. I'm not saying that. College isn't for everybody. It's just not. It's just not for everybody. And so I don't want that to define you, but I think Ken makes such a great point. I have a friend who's an electrician who, makes about $2 million a year. Yeah, he makes that much. He's hired other electricians and he's built, his business. He's got a great reputation, and he never went to college. And so I just want to say, again, there's another piece, that's the workforce piece, that's really critical, that we got to start people. And there's Rob Benner's over here, everyone. So if you want to get in the trades, you can call out our good friend Rob Benner right here, because he can help you get in the trades, but also coding, right? Coding and technology. There's a lot of programs that are out there where we won't go to college to learn how to code, and those things are important. So good job.
Mayor, if I could just plug Ace Charter High School right now.
Yes.
I'm on the board. They are an amazing group of kids, 200 students, high school students that graduate. They build a house every other year, and takes 2 years to build, and that's what funds the school. We have diesel mechanics going to TMCC. They're getting a total education in the trade they're going to go make a lot of money in, and the Builders Association provides scholarships for those kids to go continue their education in construction management at TMCC. So just when we talk about the trades, if you don't know about Ace Charter High School, you should check it out.
Yeah, it's impressive. And some of these schools that are offering some of these, alternatives in the arts, STEM, and it really, you guys, that is one thing. And I know, we see a lot of negativity about our school system and some of the things that are happening. You know what? I got to tell you, have some of the best teachers, some of the best programs in this community. And it's really sad that it gets overshadowed by a lot of the negative narrative. Because I got to tell you, I hope I get to visit a lot of these schools. I get to see kind of firsthand what's really happening. So, I don't want you to feel like, oh God, our school system sucks. It's not. There's actually a lot of good things that are happening. Okay, so last but not least, okay, there was one more thing that I wanted to add. Is there anything that any of you want to add when it comes to, bringing
Sure.
more housing into the
I would like to. I think
Because I'm going to get into Q&A in a minute, so I want to wrap this up.
people forget all types of housing help everybody. Luxury housing might help someone move that can afford it from a lower rent place into a nicer place, which frees up the middle rent place. We build affordable housing, and a lot of the people are coming out of substandard housing or roommate situations. And so we're helping with kind of the $20 an hour type wage scale people, and that's helping free up other housing for other people. So sometimes I get like, why do you build luxury housing? Because we do luxury and affordable. And I go, why is there a Mercedes and why is there a Ford? There's a need for all of it. And every housing unit that gets built, whether it's a house or an apartment or a luxury apartment or a studio apartment or a 4-bedroom house, it all helps the community. So I just like to point, I think people don't realize that sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point, that people need to understand you need all types of housing, because not one size fits all. I think Ken's getting ready to move into a tiny home now, right? Okay, go ahead. Who else? Bruce, let me...
Just one last thing.
Yeah, and then I'm going to ask you a question. This is going to be a toughie, so go ahead.
About 95% of all of the state of Nevada's affordable housing product could not have happened without federal tax credits or state tax credits. The developers that I'm sitting here with take advantage of the opportunity to build these 9% tax credit programs, 4% tax credit programs, and more money, and the legislature put another 200 million, 10 million a year, but not for 20 years, right? 2 years? All right. So 20 million over the next couple of years, 40 million over the 4. That's more units. They can't build when they run out of the tax credit money. And the guys at the housing division, it's a competitive process. So you may have 7 applications and be able to afford 5. Well, now you can do all 7. So they can't just decide to do affordable housing. They have to take advantage of the tools that they have and the tax credits and every other layer that they can get to offset the cost to drive the price down to create affordable housing.
But there's not a lot of people doing it, and I will tell you that, because it's a handful. And that's really hard because it's difficult. It's very specialized, but there's a handful that build it, you guys. That's challenging. That really is challenging. So that's, also.
And to speak to that, the Housing Authority was fortunate to be awarded 9% tax credits last year. And we are building 44 units of senior housing off Sutro, just down the street from the senior center. We are going to be setting aside 12 of those units for seniors that are coming out of the shelter and the motels. And with that, they're going to have case management from our partnering agencies to help transition them into their new unit where they're going to be able to age in place and hopefully stay there forever. This property is going to be amazing. It's going to be beautiful. It's affordable housing, but I would be honored to have, my grandmother, my grandfather live there. And that's what these tax credits do. I mean, those who are able to be awarded the tax credits build amazing properties. And since we're talking about Matt Fleming all night, he does this year after year, and he has amazing tax credit properties as well.
And so, and Amy was telling me that's the role that they see RHA playing for seniors, is specializing in this, because you don't have a product like that, correct?
No, we don't have, we have
So-
our public housing, but
So
no.
now that you got the pilot over with, get out there and build.
Yes, and
And
you
then
know,
Rob,
everyone,
get me some people to build it, right?
everyone told me once
And
I
then
got
make it
the,
absolutely affordable, okay? Yeah.
I got the bug, I would want to do it more, and absolutely, the board is supportive, and we do want to do more development, more affordable housing. And again, I mean, we have an amazing board that supports this and wants us to grow.
Okay, good. Does anyone else want to add anything? And then I'm going to ask Bruce a tough question. Go ahead, Don.
I just wanted to say, when we talk about there's different levels, and I think he touched on it. You can't require somebody who builds a Mercedes to sell a Fiat, or, it doesn't work. So when you have that specialty, and when we look at the community and the different types of housing, there are different builders who build different types. But I shivered, Mayor, when you said, "Oh, those big bad developers," earlier in your opening comments, because I hear that a lot. And when it came
Well,
out of your
you
mouth,
are.
I was a little scared. Yeah, right? But they're not. Go to any philanthropic event in town. Go to any baseball field. Go to anywhere, and you will see the name of a builder or a developer who sponsored it. They are a part of your community. They don't just build a house and walk away. They are a part of this community. And Mr. Listener here, you can go to, what was the name of the pool? I mean, they kicked it off, just sent a check, said, "Let's go. We're not going to wait around. Trainer Pool." So we're part of the community, and I think that gets lost by a lot of people. And the last thing is, on a lot of these affordable topics, from what I understand, is it's a mosaic. You can't just say, "Hey, we're going to do 20% of all of our inventory affordable." You can put the pieces together, and you can create the public-private partnerships, as you've done in the city, with forward-thinking people coming together. And I think that's where we need to focus on the affordable side in bringing and stabilizing the housing market there.
But also mixing it, don't you think? Okay, so.
Absolutely. You have to have all types.
I mean, would you guys like to say just on the south side is all affordable? No, that's crazy. So when people say, "Oh, Mayor Schieve, they didn't put enough affordable in there," you want the mix, right? Everyone should be living together, again, with grace and compassion and love for one another. I don't care how much money you make or how much money you don't make. So again, we're all neighbors. We're in this, Reno's a small community. So, when people scream and say, "Mayor, it's not affordable," you don't want everything that's affordable to be in one area. That doesn't make any sense. So thank you for bringing that up. And I will tell you, I know a developer who in the recession lost everything he had. And he said, "Hillary, I lost my business. I even lost my house." He said, "So now," he goes, "I don't have a lot of money to develop. I brought in some partners." And he goes, "Now I'm, building some product." But he goes, "The only reason I'm building product and making it affordable is because I lost my house." And he goes, I'm a real developer that cares, I mean, he really is. I also want people to, again, have some grace and mercy for the developers, because I hear that a lot, during public comment. These terrible developers. I don't know how we would stabilize rents if we didn't have people to develop the product that you do, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Breslow, we're going to tie this up because I want to get some Q&A from the audience. Do you think, so one of the frustrations at the local level, I really, really struggle with this. There's a big disconnect, and for those of you that don't follow politics, there is a very big disconnect between the legislative branch and the local branch. And one doesn't really talk to the other. And the cool thing is, speaking with the governor, we've talked about putting a big summit together of all elected officials. So we all have one vision for Nevada, starting from the top to the bottom, right? And to be honest with you, I'm very excited about this new governor and putting that in place, because we all have to have this vision together. One does not work without the other. But I will tell you, I get very frustrated at every every time we go into session, because it's very, very fragmented. And nothing against, Senator Ratty, she's right here, she's wonderful, and thank God she comes from local government, and she understands the frustration and what we go through at the local side. But the other thing is, local government is 365 days a year. It's always, we're working on it always. And the legislature gets in, and they put some things in place that then local governments end up having to live with. And you guys have to live with them. And then a lot of people don't understand. They say to me, Mayor Schieve, oh my goodness, you gave away billions of incentives, and look how horrible you've been because you brought all these things in place. And believe you me, we had to do something. Let me tell you something. Nevada was the highest in foreclosures and unemployment next to Florida. And we really were. So there's some things I think the state did very, very well. So I'm not bagging on the state, but I also kind of want to know, at the same time, was there discussion about local governments and how they would deal with infrastructure challenges and housing for this growth that we were going to see? Because now here we are at the city council level, we're dealing with it, 365 days a year. And I, have residents that, are being kicked out of their homes and these things. Was this a discussion that they had and really understood, what kind of magnitude, what challenges this was going to cause for many of us? And again, I think a lot of us, we've had a lot of success, but with success comes challenges. So can you answer that? Were you there?
Not really.
Okay. All right.
I was a
All right,
mayor.
get off the panel. No, just
I was a mayor of Sparks from 91 to 99. From 91 to 95, the economy was down. From 95 to 99, it was kicking. We in Nevada have been living this ramp for a while. So you heard the term rising tide lifts all boats. The opportunity for everybody is now. This is the second gold rush for us. All of a sudden, California, Silicon Valley people thought it was cool to move their companies to Reno. We're taking advantage of it. Everybody is doing a little bit to help everybody. But as far as the legislature goes, you have to understand that every 2 years you get about 30 brand new legislators who don't even know where one side of the building is to the other. And they're being pulled in every direction by their constituents. And they're being led by veteran legislators. And it's very difficult for them to be able to accomplish anything during that short period of time that they're together. But they all represent their local area. So it's really up to the cities. When I was running business and industry, we work with local governments all the time.
But I guess I'm frustrated when they give away billions in tax incentives and didn't even think about how are we going to build the housing.
They didn't give away billions in dollars. What they did is they said, if you come here,
Yeah.
we will defer your taxes for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
If you do everything, and we're talking about Tesla here, let's make sure we
I didn't
say
say
the word.
that. You said
So
that.
we'll
I didn't
defer
say
the
that.
taxes for a certain period of time to allow you to do this in Nevada. But after that time is done, the taxes come back to the state of Nevada. They would not be here. Google wouldn't be here. Apple wouldn't be here. Zulily wouldn't be here. Switch wouldn't be here if there was not a catalyst in the beginning.
And that's what I'm saying. I really believe we needed a catalyst. But I also felt like, where did we talk about this housing and infrastructure?
Because developers respond to growth. They don't create growth. So it's a 3-year lag typically between we need a house before a developer can get a house off the ground. Well, because we had so many developers who've been so burned over that last recession, it's about a 5-year startup.
Yeah.
And we have a lot fewer developers in town that survived the last one. But this is, the world economy may be fragile, and the national economy may be fragile, but the companies that have announced that they're coming here, 20% of them have actually built a building yet. I mean, there's more coming and more coming and more coming that have already been announced, let alone the new ones. So we have to continue this because we have an opportunity probably 5 to 7 more
And
years
I
of
want
this
to be
ride.
clear, a lot of those companies, I have to tell you, really give back to the community in a big way. I'm not, saying that they don't. But what I am saying is, it's helpful if at those levels, they come to local governments and say, hey, what kind of hardship is this going to put on you guys and your residents in the community that lives there? And so I
But
feel
you wouldn't
like
have had a school
there's-
bond pass
there's always
if
that
it wasn't for the
disconnect,
developers and the
right?
money to push the school bond. So they are part of the community and they are working with the community.
But before you make those,
Wanted to have this exchange, I know.
but before, I guess, talk to the local governments, find out what is going to be the biggest struggle, what we need in the community, so I can provide housing, affordable housing, obtainable housing, the missing middle housing to everyone in our community,
All right,
right?
so can I have my last moment here? I'm going to drop the mic literally. So 7 years
I'm not saying it's
ago,
bad, I'm just saying local government, I feel, was not at the table, and that is challenging.
7 years ago, when Tesla announced, and the state announced they were coming here, we had a town hall meeting at the governor's office and invited every mayor, every county commissioner, the developers, the
When was that?
bankers, et cetera, at the state of Nevada, and no one from the city of Reno came to that.
Because we never got the invite, I'd be the first there.
But nobody did. The other
How
people who
ironic,
came
the
still
city
didn't
of
believe
Reno
it.
did not get the invite.
No, but they didn't believe it. Even if they came to the meeting, they thought, no,
What year
this
was
can't
that?
happen.
I'm going to go back and check my emails too, by the way. Bruce, I'm not, listen, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think we needed a catalyst, but I'm also saying this is why it's important that we work from the top up and the bottom, down to the top up, vice versa. It's super important, and I think we have a real opportunity with this new administration to be able to do that. I think you have incredible elected officials in the room tonight, like Julia Ratty and Zach Conini, that are that are really changing the political landscape. So as much as we all get frustrated with Washington, I do want you to know that you have some incredible elected officials working very hard and care a lot right here at the state level and at the local level. I'm not trying to say, it's just different. It's a different process. Local government does not work the same way the federal government works or the state government works. Am I right, Julia? Yeah, so she knows it. We're right. So I'm just saying anyway. All right, we're gonna wrap this up because I want everyone to be able to go home, and my comms director was like, Hillary. Anyway, you guys could stay later and Bruce and I will hash it out if you'd like to hang out with us. Anyway, how about questions? And do you want to just give on the mic and then you can call on someone up here? Sound good? Okay, who'd like to go? You wanted to go first, so I want you to come and go ahead. Oh, and
Gentleman on the corner has raised his hand for about a half.
oh, okay, and then okay, and we'll let you go second. Okay, thank you.
So first of all, I want to say that I love Reno. Don't anybody hold it against me, but I came from the largest county in the state. Grew up there. Spent 30 years in development there. So 2 questions that you touched on, which are important to me from a development standpoint, and Ken touched on it too, is what's the city doing with the federal side of it to get in front of, because down in Clark County, we saw the jobs coming and the wave coming in the early 2000s. So from a regional standpoint, we started looking at regional infrastructure solutions, because that's one of the elephants in the room here for developers. It's like, okay, we got a site out there, but then all of a sudden I got a $300,000 storage tank I got to put downstream because I got a lift station that's run over capacity on an infill project, or as we all know, some of the people know me, my project out in the North Valleys, major infrastructure issues out there. So what is the city doing from a federal, coordinating with the feds to get in front of some of that?
Okay.
Because the second part of that is I personally stood at the podium for years dealing with Governor Sisolak. So being that his voter base is south, because he's a southern guy, Well,
We're
I'm
all
just-
here together.
I know, but from a state level, where does,
Okay, so,
where does that
okay,
rank?
so I think, Ken, you might be able to answer this because we're working on this together. You want to talk about, when we talk about federal? You never have a shortage of words, so why are you?
So what are we working on together? Give me a hint here.
Well, no, we've had a lot of conversations and what we're bringing forward. You want to talk about Cantwell Hatch?
Oh, yeah. So
Oh, yeah.
this is important. From a federal level, one of the big things that a bunch of us are working on, which would be absolutely huge for this entire country, is right now, if you go to build affordable housing with like the 9% or 4% tax credits, the 4% tax credits is actually a floating rate. And if you go out in the market and finance that, you're going to get closer to 3.3%. So there's a bill in Congress right now that would fix that at 4%. And it would also allow the state housing divisions to give a basis boost to affordable housing projects. Because right now, HUD, the Housing and Urban Development, comes up with these areas that they call disadvantaged development areas, right, or DDAs. Well, they don't make any sense whatsoever from a community standpoint. And in fact, I have a project I'm working on up on by right below Truckee Meadows Community College, where I could bring 448 affordable housing units at 60% of the area median income. It would be a huge project, right? But the zip code for the DDA area is right on the other side of the street. So if we could get this federal legislation passed, you would see this huge spurt in affordable housing projects because all of a sudden you'd have enough equity in your project to make economic sense. Because reality is, if you do an affordable housing project, you can only charge rates that HUD tells you can charge. And for example, for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit, it's like $650 a month, including utilities. The market rate for that is $1,050. And so you have to subsidize $400 a month of that rent. So if we could get this federal legislation passed, and the mayor has been very supportive, and she's helped me out lobbying in Washington, but I think that would just be an incredible opportunity for our community, our state, and our country.
Yeah, hold on, because I want to give a shout out to Jackie Rosen and Catherine Cortez Masto. Are their representatives still here? No? All right, we just want to call them out because we knew they weren't here anymore. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But what I love is both of them are very supportive, and I want to say, you know, this is was this Cantwell Hatch, right?
Yes, it's got a new name now, but that's who started it in the prior session.
Okay, see, so it goes to show you sides can work together. Hey, Bruce, you want to add to that?
No.
No? And the reason I'm calling on Bruce is because Bruce, you know, he also was at the state, so and he doesn't have all the answers. So I don't want you to think that, you know, Bruce is the state, and you know, I'm not picking on you.
I retired.
Okay, he's retired from the state. But honestly, I'm so grateful to have you because you know who you brought to us, who saved us many, many times, and it's all because of Bruce Breslow, is C.J. Manty. And C.J. Manty, it was an incredible asset to the city of Reno in building affordable and helping people get those projects to pencil. And you were huge on that. Go ahead, Dane.
Yeah, in the affordable housing that we do, the state, without the state, it wouldn't happen. So
Yeah.
the state housing division, we get the city.
Yeah.
Good job, state.
Yeah. After Julia's like Hillary, you sat here and bagged on the state, right? She's looking at me like this. Yeah. Well, call me whenever you guys are when you're doing your bills, and then we'll get it done.
So the process right now is they start at the city of Reno, and you have to get bond cap authority from the city first, and then you go to the state. And the state really packages the bulk of the financing together. Obviously, there's private financing, et cetera, but between last year and this year, we have almost over 1,000 affordable units under construction or complete because of the state and the city. It wouldn't happen otherwise.
Yeah.
So it doesn't address your issue on infrastructure necessarily, but it does address affordable housing and how the state works.
Part of what I'm going with that is
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I also think too, you got to be careful. The population down there is so different than Reno. So you have, the workforce. Am I right, Rob? I'm calling him out because he's not paying attention. But that you have that. Is that my right? Like, you just have a much bigger pool of workforce down in the south.
No, I do just want to say that I don't think that we necessarily this huge construction shortage that everybody says we do at the peak out on USA Parkway when Tesla was going full bore. We had 4,500 construction workers on that project. That's a lot of construction workers, and when that happened, it was maybe a year into our recovery, 2 years into recovery, and we were able to man that project. I think that being from labor, I just want to say, Mayor, you mentioned wages earlier. I think wages are are a factor. I believe that Reno, Sparks area, we're at about 75% of the national average for wages, but housing is like 135%. So I think I always want to point out that when we look at this problem, we don't want to just look at the cost of housing, but we might want to look at wages also. But as far as construction, I mean, yeah, for those who don't know me, I work for the Building and Construction Trades Council. All of our affiliates, all the trades have, state-of-the-art training centers here that are ready and willing to meet any kind of construction demand that this area will need.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay,
Mayor, if
we're
I could-
going to move on over to you. What's your name?
David. David Johnson.
Hi. Hi, David.
So,
Here, let's get you a mic.
thank you. I want to say thank you for everybody that's coming. Obviously, you care, and thank you for holding this event.
Thank you.
Okay, I've been living in Reno since 1990, and I also worked in Vegas. So this back in 1990, when we used to work, if you worked a 40-hour job, you were able to afford an apartment or a place to live at. Yeah, it wouldn't be the best, but it would be something. Now this day, you can't afford that.
Afford it.
You actually need 2 jobs for them. I'm talking about the minority, like major people, the most of the workforce.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people say, oh, it's because Tesla, Google, and all these companies came to Reno. And I have to object because in Vegas, there's a lot more money, a lot more companies, a lot more big international businesses, yet the rent is way cheaper and the cost of living is cheaper. So there's something going wrong.
How much cheaper is it?
Okay, so 1 bedroom right now in Reno, you're looking at
Yeah.
one from 1,000 to 1,500. In Vegas, you're gonna get that like $700 to $800.
Yeah.
And,
So,
hold on one second.
Yeah.
So we've been beating around the bush for a while, and I love Reno, but I don't like the way it's been managed for the last 10 years. Because I do care. Obviously, I want to pass away, but the kids are gonna have to inherit our problems.
right.
So, okay, so why is affordable housing a big topic for years, but yet it doesn't bring no solution? When
There's what?
affordable housing,
Yeah.
it's been a topic for many years, and it hasn't brought no solution. Actually, in the other where it's been actually worse. How come rent control laws have not been the topic in this state? Until let the mass let people save up, let them live, and like a reasonable percentage, 5%. And obviously property owners are going to object. They're going to be like, well, I own this place, I could charge whatever I want. Yeah, but if you want to make money out of people, why don't you just get your hotel license? So stop being greedy. Let people have a decent place, because there's a lot of people in the streets. And these motels, even though they're really nasty and they have a lot of cockroaches, they're dirty, they'd rather sleep in a place where it's not in the streets.
Right.
So I won't say like disrespect, say, hey, I'm not going to apologize for kicking you out there. You should, because they're in the streets. That's why our homeless population has doubled in the last 3 years. It doubled.
Yeah. So I have a really good friend, and you're right, because I hear you saying they're in the streets, and I think this is a much bigger conversation, but I will tell you.
Anybody here been homeless for at least a year? Do you know how hard it is to save up $1,500 or plus the deposit for another $1,500?
Impossible.
$3,000 for a month? When you're in the streets, it's almost impossible. So I see a lot of you guys are construction workers, and you guys have probably good parents, good living, but you got to understand there's a lot of people out there that never had good parents or good support, and to make it on their own is really hard. And I'm not talking about the mass. This is just a little drop. And so
I
what
think
is
you
your-
make
what is
some
your
great,
rent
great.
control law? What is your
So let me tell
objection?
you, so, and I think there's a couple of different ways that you have to look at this, because let me tell you what I've also experienced. And I think, actually, there's someone right here who went and fought for everyone at the state on a lot of these issues. Am I right, Julia? It was your bills. And that's what she wanted to get passed. Yeah. So she could talk about this.
So is rent control maybe an option?
So Julie, do you want to answer that?
I saw what happened to former Mayor Breslow, and I'm not sure.
No.
So thank you for bringing it up, because it's a conversation that's happening in our community. And I think if we didn't talk about it, it would probably be a little disingenuous. So there was a conversation at the legislature about rent control. And so I'm a senator, I'm down at the legislature, I'm one of those bad state people who are, making all the problems for local government.
You're
But-
grandfathered in because you come from local government.
Thank
So
you,
there you
thank
go.
So what I believe is that local governments should have the power to make those kinds of decisions, because I believe that it is very market-based. And so if you put something in at the state level that says you can't raise rent more than 15%, let's say, or you can't gouge, let's say, if you did something that said once vacancy rates are below 3%, you can't raise rent more than 15, something like that. That might make a lot of sense in parts of Reno. It might make a lot of sense in parts of Vegas. But if you go out to Winnemucca, where there's a mining economy, and sometimes those units are renting for $400 a month because the price of gold is nothing. And sometimes those units are renting for $1,200 a month because the price of gold is really high and people are making good money. If you had that kind of a law that was statewide, you'd look at some place like Winnemucca and it might not make any sense at all. So I think, no, but it's also proven that it has to be matched to the market. So let me just finish.
36 states actually ban rent control.
Right.
Obviously, the administration, they own a lot of profit.
Right.
It really goes against their profit.
California just did it. I mean, right next door, they just banned the ability to do it. So I was definitely against that. And I wanted to give local governments who have to live and breathe and
'Cause
do
she
this
comes from
every
local
single
government.
day, because I came from local government, the ability to make those decisions.
And I think too
And
that,
there's this
yeah,
conversation
good idea.
that, because Mr. Tatro is going to chime in here any minute,
Waiting
that it's
patiently.
really, really important that you work with economists and look at that market, because you have to be careful about disincentivizing building, because supply and demand is a real thing. The more units you have, the more likely the rent is to go down. And we have, as this panel, wonderful panel has been talking about all night, we've got a real challenge with supply and demand. So you have to have developers that want to build, but you also have to have justice. I'm going to put it in terms of justice. You have to have human beings like yourself, like the people that you're talking about, like the people who came down and testified at the legislature, have to have a place to live. So I believe that rent control should be part of the conversation, but you've got to be careful with the terminology, right? So like, how do we strike that
Yes.
balance where we are creating the environment where developers, with the price of land and all the things these folks have been talking about, can build the products that we need, because government doesn't build housing. We don't.
Because I have
But
landlords.
also then making
Yeah.
sure that bad actors can't come in, and we've seen it over and over again. You see a property owner come in, they paint the walls, they do nothing else, they raise
Yeah.
the rent by 75%, they raise the rent by 100%,
Yeah.
and that is
Yeah.
wrong, and we have to do something
Yeah.
about that too.
And I also
So
will tell
that's-
you,
that's
to
my
your
answer.
point, which I'm glad you brought up, let me tell you something. I have had 3 landlords come to me and say, oh my God, I saw on social media you guys are talking about rent control. So guess what I did? I upped my rent by 50% out of fear. And that, I was like, wow. So sometimes there's those unintended consequences. Tatro wants to chime in.
So I think this is a very complex conversation, but I want anyone in the room to answer me a single place where it's worked. You have San Francisco, Washington, D.C., you have Seattle. Nobody is moving there for affordable housing. So, and then the reverse of it is when you have a community problem, you cannot look at a single industry to fix it. We don't require restaurants to give 20% of their meals at a different rate. We don't say you can't raise your price of the meal, whatever it is. No, we have a community-based system. We have faith-based system. We have food banks. We have a variety of things that we as a community have come together and said, we won't let people be priced out of this. And that's what we need to do. If you try and control the price of whatever it is and say this can no longer go out of X, the government hand will come in and it manipulates market and it will increase prices. It's been proven over and over. If you look at any community with rent control or inclusionary zoning, it has not brought more to market. It has constricted supply and it has increased costs
But that's
immediately.
Thank you for your clarification and your work.
With the most respect.
Julia's amazing. We're lucky to have her. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, I'm told we get 2 more questions, and then I got to send you guys home.
Okay. Are you on? Can you hear me? Okay. So my name is Camille, and I'm a psychiatric caseworker with the state and also an MSW student with UNR. And I'm here representing Reno Initiative for Shelter and Equality. And my comment, I wanted to piggyback of what he said. You know, we have a large population with disabilities, close to 10%. And what I'm seeing is that, you know, the majority of these people are on SSI, which is typically 771. And, you know, they have that requirement that you have to make 2.5 times the rent. If you do, or if you are lucky enough to find an
And
apartment.
if you make $1 over, then you get penalized too.
Exactly.
That's
So
crazy.
it's a really big problem. And you know, if we'd have them on Section 8. Now, you know, if they come up with the voucher after waiting 2 years, we can't find a place to put them. And you know, we have a large percentage of population that is being thrown away. We all understand that with capitalism comes injustice and comes oppression, and it's being seen more here in Reno since the bigger companies have come. And I just want to say, like, from the majority of our community people, like, you know, we understand that it's booming and, you know, that's great.
But not for everyone.
We're getting rich. Yeah, it's improving but it's not, for the majority of us, it's not helping us live better lives, right? I just don't want to survive. I want to be able to live and do things with my money, not pay it all towards rent.
Yeah.
So
Good question. I think that's a good question. Mr. Listener, please answer that.
Oh, well, I volunteer with Northern Nevada Hopes, helping some of their clients get into housing, and it's tough. It's very tough. But I want to point out that the part of the apartment situation is the supply and demand, which we learned in high school, Economics 101. If somebody's built tomorrow 10,000 units right in the middle of, say, the Spaghetti Bowl or by the bus station, every rent in this town would drop. It's supply and demand. Right now, we have more demand than we have supply. You switch that, it would be amazing to see what happened. Unfortunately, we can't do that.
I want to add one more thing, and I'm going to turn this around a little bit. I'm going to make a challenge to every single elected official in this room and say that maybe part of the problem is also government. Because I have the plans from my 1956 house in my attic. It's 3 sheets. To build that house today would be 20 to 25 sheets. And we need good regulation in this country to protect citizens. But what point is enough? Too much, right? I mean, if you look at the requirements now on building codes and fire codes and what developers have to do to bring a house to market, it's absolutely out of control. Is my 1956 house built any less or any more unsafe than a house that has 20 pages of plans? I don't agree. And I would challenge all the elected officials in this room to get their code officials in one room. Maybe this becomes a statewide thing, because at some point in time, we stopped doing a benefit cost analysis. We stopped looking at, if I impose these 4 additional codes, is it going to provide enough additional benefits to society to justify the extra cost of that regulation? And I would bet that if we took a hard look at a lot of these codes that drive up the cost, we would find that we could cut costs drastically on the price of new housing.
Okay. I'm told one more, and then I gotta let
I have,
everyone go.
I have the mic.
Who was it?
Elvira, acá.
Oh,
I'm the
you
mic.
got it. Okay.
Okay, I live in my same apartment. When I rent that apartment, my rent was $650. Last rent, the lady forgot to charge me, and now it's $1,150 a month. I cannot move from my apartment. I have a special child. He moves, it's a big deal, so I cannot move. I need to stay there. Doesn't matter, I make tamales, so pay my rent. I need to pay my rent. I have two crazy ideas. I'll listen to you guys. There's one company who make like models, like Legoland. They already have ready, so just put like a Lego. So you talk about time. The Legoland, there's building apartments fast, and it's economic, and it's already approved. So that was one idea that I have. And I can follow, I have my friend, Dave Morgan from Oregon. He just moved to Carson. He knows about that Legoland project that they did in Oregon. I forget the name, but
I love Legos. Who doesn't love Legos?
but it's like that. It's like
We
your
could build
apartment is
Lego
ready,
houses.
like in Lego, and then you can build three-story or something. It's nice. It's beautiful. That's one idea. And another idea I have for Dale, I think you mentioned that you don't have employees. You lack of employment, like workers. Okay. So we have a lot of immigrants who wants to work, and they can do like working permit visa, and they can go and do your things, because many of my friends, they left because they don't have employment. So we need to be creative with what we have. I'm a single mother. I'm not 1 month to be homeless. I'm probably 1 week to be homeless, So this is, many of my neighbors in my neighborhood are homeless. They used to be my neighbors. Now they live in the street because they increase. So I'm a single mom, so it's very hard now to be a single mom. Now I don't know what to do, because I need to take her to my kid, and I have ideas, but like I said, we need to be out of the comfort zone, and I admire what you guys do, but we can look to the Lego things or bring employees or being safe for people who wants to live here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I'm told that we have to wrap it up tonight. And so I just want to get a little bit of feedback from everyone tonight in the sense, I believe we have some questionnaires and some answers and things that we can also answer the questions that might not have been answered tonight. Okay, you're so good. So Rebecca, please give a round of applause for Rebecca Venus. She's a wonderful, wonderful communications director. I love her. But I want you guys to fill this out, and here's why. Because if you guys think this conversation is effective and you like this format, this is not a city council format. And I think it should be very open and transparent. And if you like that, then I'll continue to host these. If you don't, then we won't. But I think it's important that we have these conversations, and they're very candid. And I think, to your point right here, talking about disabilities, that is a very, very real situation. And so I think it's good to hear for developers, maybe they start developing also with disabilities in mind and things like that. So I think this is very effective. I like that, and I think, everyone coming to the table as the community, you heard all of us. Tonight we were all blamed, from Rob with his labor, to Hillary with her government, to poor Julia thinks that I hate the state, and then and Bruce too, and you know what I mean? So you heard a lot of the challenges that we all, we all have to take responsibility for. But guess what, you guys? Nothing is going to change unless we're doing it together, and we're talking about it, and we're having these conversations. It's not happening unless we're at the table, right? What's that saying? Because Councilman Delgado loves to use that saying. If you're not on the menu. Yeah, if you're not on the table, you're on the menu. Okay, so I love that when Councilman Delgado says that. Okay, so I need everyone to fill these out. Last but not least, there is a community partner here that I didn't mention, and I didn't realize because they were in the last part of my notes, and that's RTC. Amy Cummings from RTC is here, and they're also, I think you guys are going to do a housing town hall too, right? Okay, next week. Yeah,
Yes,
perfect.
Thursday, September 12th, 4 to 6 at the McKinley Arts and Culture Center. We want to talk about having affordable housing near public transit routes and ways that we can try to do
Because
that.
transit is really important. You guys, that's another thing is when we do these projects, we like to look at transit, how close it is. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to build a project where it has no transit. Have you thought about that, right? What do we do? Build it out there and then, I mean, what are they gonna do? Right? So transit's really important. So Amy Cummings, thank you for being here. I hope everyone joins that town hall with RTC at McKinley. And then last but not least, I want to say, Bill Thomas didn't speak tonight. He's very humble. But let me tell you something. So I love Bill, and like I said, he is one of the biggest visionaries that I know. And I am really excited, and I can't wait for everyone to hear this. But in 2 weeks, I'm going to roll out a very big, bold initiative for housing. And I don't think, do you think any city's done it in the country? Do you think? I don't think so. And I think it's a very big deal, and it's something that we need housing now so we can stabilize your rents now, okay? And this is something that I do think could transform. It's very, do you think it could be transformative?
Better be.
Right. But I feel like it is, and I feel like it can make a huge, significant impact, and be looking for it in the next 2 weeks. We're going to try to roll it out here tonight, and then, again, meet Hillary, the elephant in the room, anyway, never mind, I won't say anything. Anyway, I'm really excited, so just be looking for a huge announcement in the next 2 weeks. All right, good night, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Give everyone a round of applause up here. Thank you.